The land of Israel lay under the harsh rule of the Philistines, a powerful people who dominated the coastal plains and pressed inland against the Israelite tribes. For 40 years, the children of Israel had suffered under this oppression, their spirits crushed beneath the weight of foreign rule. It was during this dark time that an angel appeared to a woman from the tribe of Dan, the wife of Manoah, who had been unable to bear children. The divine messenger brought extraordinary news. She would conceive and give birth to a son who would begin to deliver Israel from the hands of the Philistines. There was, however, a condition. The child must be dedicated as a Nazirite from birth, never drinking wine or strong drink, never cutting his hair, and never touching anything unclean. When the woman told her husband of this miraculous encounter, Manoah prayed for the angel to return and provide further guidance. God heard his prayer, and the angel appeared once more, confirming the instructions. In due time, the woman gave birth to a son and named him Samson. And as he grew, the Lord blessed him, and the Spirit of the Lord began to stir within him. As Samson reached manhood, his extraordinary strength became evident, yet so did his weakness for Philistine women. One day, while visiting the Philistine town of Timnah, Samson saw a young woman who caught his eye and demanded his parents arrange for him to marry her. His parents were dismayed, asking, "Is there not a woman among our own people that you must choose one from the uncircumcised Philistines?" But Samson was adamant, not knowing that this was from the Lord, who was seeking an occasion against the Philistines. On his way to Timnah to see the woman, a young lion attacked Samson, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon him in power. Though he had nothing in his hand, he tore the lion apart as easily as one might tear a young goat. Later, passing by the same spot, he found the lion's carcass filled with honey. He scooped some out and ate it as he walked along, giving some to his parents without telling them where it came from. At his wedding feast in Timnah, Samson posed a riddle to 30 Philistine companions. Out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. For 3 days they could not solve the riddle, but on the 7th day, they threatened Samson's wife, saying, "Persuade your husband to explain the riddle, or we will burn you and your father's household." Under this pressure, she tearfully pleaded with Samson until he revealed the answer. When the Philistines gave him the solution, Samson knew he had been betrayed. Burning with anger, the Spirit of the Lord came upon him in power, and he went down to Ashkelon, struck down 30 men, took their belongings, and gave their garments to those who had explained the riddle. Samson's anger cooled eventually, and he decided to visit his wife, bringing a young goat as a gift. But her father would not allow him to go in, saying, "I was so sure you hated her that I gave her to your companion." When Samson heard this, his rage was kindled again. He caught 300 foxes, tied them tail to tail in pairs with a torch between each pair, and set the torches ablaze. He released them into the standing grain of the Philistines, burning up their grain, vineyards, and olive groves. The Philistines demanded to know who had done this, and upon learning it was Samson, they went up and burned his wife and her father to death. "Since you have done this," Samson declared, "I will surely have my revenge." He attacked them viciously, inflicting a great slaughter, then went to live in a cave in the rock of Etam. The Philistines came up to Judah and spread out near Lehi, demanding Samson be handed over. 3,000 men of Judah went to the cave and said to Samson, "Don't you realize that the Philistines are rulers over us? What have you done to us?" Samson replied simply, "I merely did to them what they did to me." The men of Judah bound Samson with 2 new ropes and led him up from the rock. As he approached Lehi, the Philistines came toward him shouting. Again, the Spirit of the Lord came upon him in power. The ropes on his arms became like charred flax and fell away from his hands. Finding a fresh jawbone of a donkey, he grabbed it and struck down 1,000 men. After this victory, Samson was overcome with thirst and cried out to the Lord. God opened up a hollow place in Lehi and water came out. When Samson drank, his strength returned, and he revived. He led Israel for 20 years in the days of the Philistines. Some time later, Samson went to Gaza and saw a prostitute there, whom he visited. When the Gazites heard that Samson had come, they surrounded the place and lay in wait for him all night at the city gate, planning to kill him at dawn. But Samson got up in the middle of the night, took hold of the doors of the city gate along with the 2 posts, tore them loose, bar and all, put them on his shoulders, and carried them to the top of the hill that faces Hebron. After this, he fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek whose name was Delilah. The rulers of the Philistines approached her with an offer. "See if you can lure him into showing you the secret of his great strength and how we can overpower him. We will each give you 1,100 pieces of silver." Delilah began to press Samson, asking, "Tell me the secret of your great strength and how you can be tied up and subdued." Samson told her lies 3 times. First, he said that 7 fresh bowstrings would weaken him. Then, new ropes that had never been used. Then, if she wove the 7 braids of his hair into the fabric on the loom. Each time, she did as he suggested while Philistine men hid in her room. But each time, when she cried, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you," he broke free with ease. Finally, after she had pressed him day after day with her words and nagged him until he was sick to death of it, Samson told her the truth. "No razor has ever been used on my head because I have been a Nazirite dedicated to God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as any other man." Delilah, seeing that he had told her everything, sent word to the Philistine rulers to come one more time. They returned with the silver in hand. She lulled Samson to sleep on her lap and called for a man to shave off the 7 braids of his hair. His strength left him, and when she cried, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you," he awoke thinking, "I'll go out as before and shake myself free." But he did not know that the Lord had left him. The Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, and brought him down to Gaza. There they bound him with bronze shackles, and he was set to grinding grain in the prison. But the hair on his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. The rulers of the Philistines assembled to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon their god and to celebrate, saying, "Our God has delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hands." When the people saw him, they praised their God, claiming, "Our God has delivered our enemy into our hands, the one who laid waste our land and multiplied our slain." As their hearts were merry, they called for Samson to be brought out to entertain them. They stood him among the pillars of the temple. Samson said to the servant who held his hand, "Put me where I can feel the pillars that support the temple, so that I may lean against them." The temple was crowded with men and women. All the rulers of the Philistines were there, and on the roof were about 3,000 men and women watching Samson perform. Then Samson prayed to the Lord, "Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God, strengthen me just once more, and let me with one blow get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes." With that, Samson reached toward the 2 central pillars on which the temple stood. Bracing himself against them, his right hand on one and his left hand on the other, Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." Then he pushed with all his might, and the temple came down on the rulers and all the people in it. Thus he killed many more when he died than while he lived. The story of Samson reveals the complex nature of divine deliverance and human weakness. Born with extraordinary purpose and gifted with supernatural strength, Samson nevertheless struggled with pride, lust, and vengeance throughout his life. His victories over the Philistines were often prompted by personal revenge rather than devotion to God's purpose, yet God worked through these flawed motivations to begin the deliverance of Israel. Samson's life follows a tragic arc of promise, power, betrayal, humiliation, and ultimately, redemption in death. His final prayer reveals a man who, despite his failings, turned to God in his darkest hour and was granted one last display of the strength that had defined his life. After his death, his brothers and his father's whole family went down to get him. They brought him back and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the tomb of Manoah his father. For all his flaws, Samson had led Israel for 20 years, and though his deliverance was incomplete, he began the work that would eventually free his people from Philistine oppression. His story stands as a testament to how God can work through deeply flawed individuals to accomplish divine purposes, using even human weakness and failure as instruments of his will. Samson's extraordinary physical strength was matched only by his moral weakness, yet in his final act of self-sacrifice, He found a measure of redemption that would ensure his place among the heroes of faith remembered through the generations of Israel.